Hi, my friends. This is Stacy, the Baby Maker Roberts, and I'm coming to you with Baby Maker fertility tips. But also, this talk actually goes a little bit beyond fertility. I'm going to be talking about polycystic ovarian syndrome, partly because this is September and it's Polycystic Ovarian Syndrome Awareness Month, the month of September. But also because I see a lot of women with polycystic ovaries coming into the clinic and they have a lot of misinformation about their syndrome or that they're experiencing, and I want to kind of set the record straight for those women who have been diagnosed with polycystic ovaries. So polycystic ovaries is a little bit confusing to diagnose. It seems the medical community, and I'm not a doctor, I'm a naturopath, physical therapist, a fertility advocate, basically complementary medicine specialist, but I utilize and I've worked in both the complementary and natural or alternative conventional medicine fields, both fields. So I like to combine those approaches whenever possible, but I also want to help whoever I'm working with choose the course that's right for them, the one that has the least amount of stress on their system and promotes health as much as possible. So when we're talking about women with polycystic ovaries, it appears that the medical community, straight medical community, MDs, DOs, etc., have a difficult time really agreeing what a polycystic ovary diagnosis really looks like. Now, it used to be that only if the ovaries looked polycystic, meaning they had cysts or actually follicles that didn't have eggs in them on the ovaries or inside the ovaries, and they had more of them than average, then they'd be diagnosed with polycystic ovaries. But some doctors don't believe that's the only reason to do that. Some doctors say we only will diagnose it based on what we see in the blood tests, high levels of androgens such as testosterone, DHEA, things like that. And then some doctors go with the newer research that kind of puts PCO into different categories, which include symptoms as well. So it can be very confusing. So bottom line, without going into this huge explanation, is if you have been diagnosed with polycystic ovaries, the good thing is there's so much you can do. As a matter of fact, it's one of the most straightforward diagnoses that I see. And if you follow through with some relatively straightforward steps, one of the easiest ones to address, and I guess I shouldn't use the word easy, but more straightforward issues or syndromes to address. Now, polycystic ovaries is really a symptom of a greater issue that's going on in the system. And one of the reasons why polycystic ovaries can lead to high blood pressure, diabetes, and things like that in the future is because this underlying issue is not being addressed. And they might only be taking medication for something that's kind of covering up the issue, but not addressing the underlying cause. So many women with polycystic ovaries have what's called insulin resistance, and that's pre-diabetes. It's the step before pre-diabetes or diabetes. Some consider it the same as pre-diabetes. Many women have that issue, and then some women don't have that specific diagnosis of insulin resistance, but they have what's called hyperinsulinemia or excessive insulin levels, or they have difficulty metabolizing or for the body to use glucose or sugar. So I've written a lot about polycystic ovaries in an ebook that I've written and to explain about it, but for our purposes in this video, what I want to talk to you about is, again, it's very straightforward to address, which is exciting because not only can you address it with very straightforward methods for fertility, but for long-term health as well. Because if all that happens when you're 18, 19, or 20 and get diagnosed with polycystic ovaries that you get put on the pill, that takes away the symptoms, but it doesn't address the actual underlying issue. So when you stop taking the pill, chances are the symptoms and the polycystic ovaries are going to come right back. Before we get into the steps to address it, I want to say one thing is that the earlier you get diagnosed with it, the best chance you have to address it. So there are so many ways to address it too. And I look at polycystic ovaries diagnosis as as a positive thing. I know people are gonna be like, how can it be positive? And these things, might not be able to get pregnant, might get diabetes, might do all these types of things. But really, polycystic ovaries is like the canary in the coal mine. And if you haven't heard that expression before, what they used to do way back when, before they had different types of tools and equipment to detect certain chemicals or fumes or things in the air, what old miners, coal miners I think it was, would do is to make sure that the air that they were breathing in underground when they went to do their mining wasn't poisonous, they would take a canary with them or a bird, and if that bird basically fell over, they knew that there were toxic fumes down there and they couldn't go work in the mine that day or in that area at all. And then they did what they did as miners to take care of that. So the polycystic ovaries, or PCOS, is basically the canary in the coal mine. It's telling you that there are some issues that are going on right now and it's creating polycystic ovaries. But it's your red flag to address those issues so you don't end up developing the issues with fertility, or that if you have had issues with fertility, that you can address them now, because you know exactly what the issues is if it's only with the female. It can prevent you from having or creating diabetes or prediabetes or getting your body into that state. It could prevent, knowing this and doing the things that we'll discuss, could prevent you from developing high blood pressure or that getting worse over a period of time. So all these, or if you do become pregnant and you've had polycystic ovaries, I should say when, because there's still a very good possibility of you becoming pregnant if you have polycystic ovaries. Then you'll have less of it, if you follow the steps, you'll have less of a chance to develop gestational diabetes and hopefully avoid all the complications that go along with that. So I'm excited to talk about this because it is, again, one of the most straightforward things that I see. And when women have this information and they understand where it's coming from, it empowers them to be able to do something about it. So we run really through my 5-step fertility solution specifically for polycystic ovaries, and polycystic ovaries and unexplained infertility were one of the reasons why I put these 5 steps together, because it works so well. Number 1, optimal eating plan. You've got to get rid of the extra sugar. You've got to get rid of the added sugar. You've got to get rid of this sweeteners and natural or otherwise out of your eating plan. You've got to decrease the carbohydrates or have the carbohydrates that are healthy for you, and then balance your proteins and good fats. And this doesn't all need to happen overnight, but over a period of time when doing this, you're going to help improve your situation significantly. And it doesn't mean you can never ever have sugar, but for someone who's been diagnosed with polycystic ovaries, sugar is like your kryptonite. Superman, the big Superman. And what makes Superman so weak is kryptonite, right? That's what sugar is to a woman who has polycystic ovaries. It basically can significantly cause inflammation and weaken the system, if you will. And polycystic ovaries then develops or continues. So diet's got to be number 1. So get with somebody that can work with you, whether it's somebody like me. You can reach me at naturalfertility.com to work with me. Or a nutritionist that understands balancing, good fats, proteins, and low glycemic carbohydrates. And if you go to any nutritionist or dietitian that says it's okay to have Diet Coke because it's diet, the sweeteners in there are horrible, and they've been noted to increase the risk of diabetes and weight gain. So please, if you ever see somebody that's telling you that that's okay, say, thanks very much, but I need to find somebody who has some of the newer information. So eating plan, got to get the sugars out. Paleo is okay, Mediterranean diet's okay. Combination of both of those is really what I recommend to patients, but I like to look at their eating plan individually and help them along, because nobody likes to stick to a diet, and we want to create a program that's going to be beneficial for you. I also talk about what the good fats, good proteins and stuff are in my book, The Baby Maker's Guide to Getting Pregnant, featuring the 5-step fertility solution that can be found on Amazon.com. Second is minimize your exposure to toxins, but let me tell you, and the toxins are a lot of times from your foods that you're eating. You're eating a lot of processed foods. So we need to eliminate them as much as possible and eat whole foods and fresh foods, and choose the foods that are less processed if you don't have a lot of choice in that. And there's other things to avoid as well too, in regards to chemicals and stuff that you're putting on and in your body, but that's a big one for polycystic ovaries. Supplementation. You definitely want to be on a probiotic, because probiotic can help you metabolize that glucose, first starting in the stomach and the gut, but it can also help your body decrease inflammation, get more nutrition into the system. And there's new studies showing that it helps to metabolize estrogen well, and I'll be hopefully developing a good probiotic for women with polycystic ovaries over a period of time as I gather more information. So probiotics, number one. Fish oil, good quality fish oil supplement. Not something that you have to take 6 or 9 a day. Not something that is really, really cheap, because those really usually are very, very low potency. So you want something like a Nordic Naturals fish oil. And they have really good potencies in their EPA, DHA. Sorry I'm running through this so fast, but I just want to give you some ideas and then you can take this information to whoever you're working with. And a good multivitamin that's going to help you, that's going to have chromium in it, that's going to have selenium, zinc, and iodine in it for your thyroid, because that helps you metabolize glucose, as does chromium. Some inositol. Inositol can be great for polycystic ovaries and helping balance things out. Herbals, which are great for polycystic ovaries, can be things like gymnema, which help to regulate blood sugar levels, and then other specific ones, bitter melon and other specific herbs can also help, but it's really, really smart to go to somebody that can look and make sure that nothing's conflicting with medications that you might be taking or anything else that you might be doing, especially if you want to become pregnant. So that's kind of a rundown, a synopsis of what you should look for. A good multivitamin, which could be a good prenatal, a really good fish oil. I gave you the name of the Nordic Naturals, which I think is fantastic, and probiotics, which multi-strain probiotics, and one that I often recommend is Dr. Mercola's Complete Probiotics. And like I said, I'm looking for putting something together specifically for polycystic ovaries down the line. So email me if you have any questions about that at info@naturalfertility.com. Step number 4, and that would be 4, is exercise. So getting out there and exercising. You don't have to be an elite athlete. You don't have to be a marathon runner, but you've got to get active, because that helps you use that glucose and metabolize that insulin, utilize the insulin, metabolize the glucose. Really, really important exercise. And one myth about polycystic ovaries is that if women with polycystic ovaries lift weights, that they're going to get big, huge muscles. So totally not true. Okay, completely not true. We can't do that based on our estrogen and testosterone balance. And even if we have higher levels of testosterone, if you have polycystic ovaries, it's not like a male levels of testosterone. So some weight training would be fine. Yoga would be good. Active, walking, high intensity. Interval training is great. I write about those in the Baby Maker's Guide to Getting Pregnant as well too. And stress management. If you're stressed out, you're going to eat poorly. So you probably eat foods that are more mood satisfying or emotional eating type things. So you definitely want to have some stress management tactics, which one could be exercise, and then maybe the yoga, and then meditation. And there's all sorts of different ways to manage stress healthily instead of unhealthily by eating and drinking and smoking and all those types of things. So that was a really quick rundown of the 5 steps. Let me repeat that. So optimize your eating plan, mostly getting out of the sugars and processed foods. And believe me, there still is stuff to eat. Okay, looking at a combination of like paleo, Mediterranean diet, minimizing your exposure to toxins. You do that through your diet, and then getting rid of some of the processed foods, or a lot of them. And then, looking at what you're putting on and in your body, just in general, staying away from a lot of chemicals. We talked about the 3 baseline supplements that I recommend, and then any specific ones, the person who's working with you, like myself, can get you more specific stuff to take. Exercise, fantastic, just getting active and moving, and then stress management. So if you follow all those things and you're having any symptoms regarding polycystic ovaries, including irregular cycles, excess hair growth, certain acne in certain parts of your face and body, like I said, irregular cycles or spotting or things associated with polycystic ovaries, weight gain for some people, it's not always the case for others. These things, when done together, not just one separately and then be like, oh, this doesn't work, but when done together, these will make a massive impact on your ability to address the symptoms related to polycystic ovaries, which in itself is a symptom of something underlying, and then you're changing your overall health in general. If doing all 5 of those things doesn't take care of everything or get your cycles regular, then you do need to see somebody for specific adjustments. Now, You can do the medical route only, you could do the natural route only, or what I like to do is balance the two. Because if you're taking something like metformin, we need to adjust your supplementation program because that depletes you of certain nutrients. So we definitely need to make sure that those nutrients are in your program to counteract the side effects of some of the medications that you may or may not be taking. So in a nutshell, I wanted to bring some awareness and a different perspective about polycystic ovaries because people get very worried when they get the diagnosis, and it's not something that you want to celebrate by any means, but it's something to feel empowered about. Now there's so much information out there about how you can help yourself, and so many people are out there to help support you. And I know women with polycystic ovaries can oftentimes feel very alone. They feel like they look different, or they feel like they're different in general because their cycle is different. Sometimes low self-esteem goes along with those things. So if you can take the bull by the horns and say, look, this is my diagnosis, but I can do something about it. There's people that are getting better from this. Then you are taking control of your life and in fertility, if fertility is a thing that you're focusing on now, or in the long run, or your health in the long run in general. So what's the worst thing that can happen when you do these things is you get healthier. So that's pretty cool. So again, my name is Stacy the Baby Maker Roberts, and I help support people with fertility issues, but also overall health, and I help people optimize their overall health through complementary medicine and, when necessary, working with the physicians to create the best approach for the particular patient. So if you do have polycystic ovaries, I strongly recommend you reach out to a polycystic ovarian group or association, online or offline, and check out my book, The Baby Maker's Guide to Getting Pregnant, featuring the 5-step fertility solution, or contact me at info@naturalfertility.com or info@babymakerproducts.com, and I can get back to you in regards to any questions that you might have or any products that might be beneficial for you that I can steer you towards. So thanks very much for listening, and you take care of yourself, okay? And I hope this has empowered you to move forward and take control of your health. Thanks.